I should have left when the lights went off, but she was still there, and something in me needed to stay. I wasn't supposed to be on that shift, covering for a guy who called in sick, half the office already gone by 6. The air was stale and buzzing with the kind of silence only cheap overhead lighting can make worse. She was at her desk near the back, still typing, headphones in, completely absorbed. I remember thinking how out of place she looked in that building, sharp, elegant, way too composed for the chaos around her. She always carried herself like she was already somewhere more important than here. Alicia, my boss, 42, I think. I never asked, just overheard it once during a meeting, the way someone mutters a birth date like it doesn't matter. I'd only been there 2 months. An intern, technically, but I'd noticed her before. Everyone had. That quiet kind of noticing. The kind you don't speak out loud. I was printing out reports when the power-saving lights clicked off in the hallway. My stomach dropped. I hadn't realized how late it was. I turned to go, and then I heard her voice. "You're still here." She had pulled one earbud out and was looking at me. Eyes a little narrowed, not annoyed, just surprised. "I was just finishing those accounts you flagged," I said, trying not to sound too proud of myself. She stood up slowly, walking over with her arms crossed like she was trying to read something invisible in the air between us. "You're not being paid overtime, you know?" "Yeah," I said. I wasn't really thinking about that. We both laughed. Short, breathy, not really about the joke. And then, without another word, she turned and walked to the door. I figured she was leaving, but I heard the click. She locked it. I looked at her. She looked back at me. It wasn't weird. Not at first. She said something about the neighborhood at night, how they've had break-ins, how she doesn't like walking out to the parking lot alone. She said it casually, like she did this all the time. But she didn't leave. She leaned against the filing cabinet near my desk, arms still crossed, one heel pressed back against the metal. "What made you stay late?" she asked. I swallowed. "I don't know." She nodded like that answer made sense to her. Like maybe she'd done the same thing once. A long time ago. There was a pause. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Then she stepped forward just a little. Her hand brushed the desk near mine. Pen rolled off. She bent to pick it up, and I looked away too fast. When she stood again, she was closer. "I used to stay late too," she said, voice quieter now. "When I started. Back when I thought working harder would fix things." "Did it?" "No." Another pause. There was something happening. Not loud, not obvious. But I felt it in my chest. Like air stretching thin. Her eyes held mine for a second too long. And then her fingers touched my wrist. Just barely. Just enough. I forgot how to speak. "You don't have to go yet," she said. And that's when everything shifted. She walked to the break room without another word. I stood there like a damn statue, still feeling the ghost of her touch on my wrist. It wasn't even a full touch, just her fingers brushing skin. But something about it didn't feel professional. It didn't feel accidental either. A few seconds passed, and I heard the sound of the mini fridge creaking open. Then glass. The soft clink of bottles. She reappeared with 2 stemless wine glasses and a half-empty bottle of red. "I keep it in the fridge behind the oat milk," she said, holding up the bottle like an apology. "Nobody looks back there." She poured one for herself, then hesitated. "Unless you'd rather not." I walked over before I could talk myself out of it. Took the glass without answering. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I used to share this with my ex. He hated the aftertaste," she said, then immediately seemed to regret it. "Sorry, that just came out." I didn't know what to say, so I sipped the wine. It was too cold. Probably wasn't supposed to be cold. She sat down at the edge of the long meeting table, crossing one leg over the other. Her skirt slid up just slightly, not much. But I noticed. God, I noticed everything. The way her blouse was half untucked. The chipped polish on her fingernail. The faint outline of a tiredness under her eyes she covered well in daylight. She looked like someone who used to be sharp all the time, and lately had been letting herself dull just enough to breathe. "I wasn't always like this," she said suddenly. I looked up. Like what? She swirled the wine in her glass. So, closed off, detached. I used to care more. I didn't ask what made her stop. She probably wouldn't have told me anyway. Instead, I said, I don't think you're as detached as you act. She blinked. It was the smallest thing, but it felt huge, like I'd gotten too close to something she didn't name. I should have sent you home, she said. But she didn't move. I nodded. Probably. Neither of us moved. I glanced down at her hand on the table, inches from mine. My pulse kicked up in my throat. Say something. Anything. But what I almost said would have been stupid. Would have broken the thing that hadn't even started yet. So I looked away. And then she did it again, her fingers light against the inside of my wrist. Slower this time. A little more certain. Stay a little longer? She asked. Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. And I knew I should say no. But I didn't. She stood slowly and walked to the window. The city beyond was turning to smudged gold and violet. The streetlights had blinked on. Inside the office, everything felt still, too still. Then, without a word, she pulled the blinds closed. The soft rattling of the slats sent something down my spine, like the moment before thunder. I took another sip of the wine I didn't want anymore. Like I'm breakable. I don't. She didn't respond to that, but she walked back toward me, slowly, like she was moving through water. Then she sat. For half a second, I felt myself lean back internally, pulling away from something I didn't understand, something I maybe shouldn't have stepped into. But then she touched my arm again, this time with intention. I don't want to talk about him. Her fingers stayed there, warm against the fabric of my shirt. I could feel her looking at me, waiting. One breath too long. 1 second too close. And I knew, if she moved even an inch closer, everything would change. I didn't move. Neither did she. Her hand was still on my arm. Light, careful, but steady. She wasn't drunk. I could tell. She was deliberate. And I was the one trying not to fall into the space between us. She finally spoke. I've thought about this, she said. The air left my lungs. Not what I expect. Just, I notice things. You notice me. It's hard not to. I blinked, barely breathing. Every muscle in my chest felt locked. I thought it was just me, I said. She looked up, straight at me. No, she said. It hasn't been just you for a while. There it was. The truth, laid bare between us. No desk, no glass, no silence big enough to hide it anymore. She reached for the wine again, then stopped. Her hand hovered in midair, then curled into a fist. I shouldn't be doing this, she said under her breath. You're not wrong, I said finally. But none of that's why I stayed late tonight. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Not with suspicion, but with something deeper. Vulnerable. Wary hope. Then why? I swallowed. Because I feel more like myself around you than I do with people my age. Because I watch you pretend nothing bothers you when I know you go home and turn the lights off without eating dinner. Because I think you're the only person in this building who's more tired of pretending than I am. Her breath caught. I heard it. I had said too much. Maybe just enough. She didn't move. Neither did I. Then softly, she said, You don't know me. I'm trying to. Silence again. And then she said the thing that made everything tilt. Do you want to kiss me? Or do you just want to be right about me? My pulse went sideways. Her eyes didn't flinch. She wasn't teasing. She was protecting herself. From me, from this, from whatever was about to happen next. I couldn't answer right away. I think she knew that. So she leaned in just slightly, waiting. Her question hung in the air. Do you want to kiss me? Or do you just want to be right about me? And I should have said something smart, something careful. But all I could do was look at her. Really look at her. Like I hadn't let myself until now. I whispered it before I even realized I was speaking. Alicia. Her name. Out loud in my voice. Quiet but full. Like saying it made her more real. Not the boss, not the woman in heels and meetings and perfectly worded emails. Just her. And she froze. Her expression shifted. Like I'd touched something I wasn't supposed to. Her shoulders stiffened. The air turned. Say that again? She said. I didn't understand the look in her eyes at first. Not anger, not fear, but something deeper. She looked at me like I'd just stepped across a boundary I didn't know was there. I just said your name. No, you didn't. I blinked. Alicia? She closed her eyes, exhaled hard. Then, my name isn't Alicia. Not to you. The silence went heavy, dense, and then something dropped into place in my memory. A photo. From years ago, sitting dusty on my mom's old bookshelf. One she never explained, always flipped over. A group of women, one of them young, maybe mid-20s. Familiar, bright eyes, sharp smile. Her. Wait, I said slowly. You knew my mom? She looked at me now like she was about to lie, then didn't. I was her friend, she said. A long time ago. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice cracked a little. Because she didn't want me to. I sat back, heart suddenly pounding in a new direction. You've known who I was this whole time? I wasn't supposed to still be here when you started, she said quickly. They transferred my old team. I asked to stay behind. It wasn't supposed to matter. But it does. She opened her mouth to say something. Stopped. Her hands gripped the edge of the table now, knuckles white. I watched you grow up in pictures, she said finally. I helped your mom move out after the divorce. I was there the night she stopped herself, looked away. My mother never talked about that night, I said, voice low. She wouldn't. I stood now, not quite angry, but reeling. All this time, you acted like we were strangers. Her voice came soft, but cracked. Because if I let you know who I'd been, maybe I wouldn't get to be who I am now. With you. And just like that, the tension changed. Not gone, but charged with something new. Heavier. More dangerous. More true. You should have told me, I said. She stepped forward. I know. And then, barely above a whisper. Do you still want to kiss me? Do you still want to kiss me? She said it like she already knew I didn't have an answer. Like the question itself was heavier than anything we'd said all night. And the truth? I didn't know. Not in the simple way she asked. Not anymore. I stood there with my heart caught in the back of my throat, looking at her, the woman I thought I was just starting to figure out, and now realized I'd only ever seen fragments of. Alicia, I said again, quieter this time. She flinched. No, she said gently. Not that name. Not if we're doing this for real. I sat down. The wine glass on the table had a smudge of her lipstick on it. I stared at it, then at her. You should have told me you knew my mom. I know. You should have told me before any of this started. I know, she said again, but softer. I didn't because I liked how you looked at me when you didn't know. I nodded, slowly. Then, I still do. She didn't move, didn't smile. I'm not proud of hiding it, she said. It's selfish. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't plan to want you. You were just supposed to be a name in the intern pool. Someone's kid. I wasn't supposed to notice how quiet you are when you listen. Or how you leave your mug turned sideways like your mom used to. That made my throat tighten. You saw all that? Every day. And then I broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. But something inside me gave way. You were there, I said. Back when everything at home was falling apart, you were just in the background of it. You mattered. Even when you didn't know I saw you. She stepped forward now. Real steps. No hesitation. I never stopped seeing you. I looked up at her. I came here tonight thinking I was just staying late, I said. I didn't realize I was walking back into something I didn't even know I remembered. I didn't realize I'd care this much if you walked away. That was it. No more pretending. No more power plays, wine glasses, half-lit glances. It wasn't about kissing her anymore. It was about knowing her. Not the woman who locked the door, but the one who stayed behind after every goodbye. I'm not walking away, I said. But I'm not rushing this either. She nodded. And when she exhaled, it sounded like she'd been holding that breath since the moment I walked in. I don't want this to be a mistake, she whispered. Then don't let it be. She sat beside me again. No kiss. No music swelling. Just two people who'd been circling the truth and finally let it land. She reached for my hand. This time I held hers back. She fell asleep first. It was just the couch in her office, the one no one ever used unless someone pulled a double and needed to rest. No one else was there to see her curl up, shoes off, jacket draped over her like a blanket. I sat beside her for a long time, not touching, just being there. Because everything had changed, not in some explosive way, not in some forbidden office affair kind of way. It changed in the quiet, in what we didn't do. And for once in my life, not crossing the line felt more intimate than crossing it ever could have. When the sun cracked through the blinds the next morning, soft and gray-blue, she stirred. Her eyes opened slow. She blinked once, looked around, and then at me. "You stayed," she said, voice still thick with sleep. "Yeah." No one had to say what that meant. She sat up, rubbing the back of her neck. "I should make coffee." "I already did," I said, nodding toward the mug on the table. "It's terrible." "You're welcome." That made her smile, a small one. But it wasn't guarded anymore. "I need to tell HR," she said. "I don't want there to be secrets." "Not anymore." I nodded. "Whatever we are, we'll do it right." She looked at me, studying my face like she wasn't sure if I knew what I was saying. "You're young," she said. "And you're tired," I replied. We both laughed. A real one this time. There was no perfect solution. She was still my boss for now. We agreed she'd start the transfer process to another department. Quietly, professionally, carefully. But more than that, we agreed on something else. We weren't pretending anymore. She told me more about my mom that day. About the version of her I never got to see. About late-night phone calls and quiet heartbreaks, and the way she used to hum when she didn't know she was doing it. And I told her what it felt like to be raised by someone who never finished her own sentences. How I grew up wanting to protect people who never asked to be protected. I think we saw each other, finally, not as roles or memories or responsibilities. Just people. Flawed, cautious, honest. It wasn't some fairy tale. There were questions we hadn't answered, boundaries we were still navigating. But it was ours. And that meant something. I left the office that morning just as the city was waking up. Traffic humming, coffee lines forming. No one had any idea what had just unfolded behind that locked office door. But I did. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.